Tonight, the new efforts to release the Epstein files and the subpoenas for former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. House Republicans issuing subpoenas for high-profile government officials to testify about the Epstein case. Plus, Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell's new push to keep grand jury transcripts sealed, and the photos from inside the convicted sex offender's home showing just how well-connected he was. Also breaking tonight, we're on the front lines of California's biggest wildfire of the summer. The blaze exploding in size, threatening structures, and prompting evacuations. Hazy skies and dangerous air concerns from coast to coast. Al Roker with when we could see some relief. After days on the run, the man wanted for allegedly killing 4 members of a Tennessee family is finally caught. The chilling surveillance video and 911 calls that helped officers track him down. A wall of water wiping out a mountainside village in India, the violent flash floods triggering a mudslide, rescuers racing to save those trapped under debris. The deadly Legionnaire's outbreak in New York City, cases rising after people inhaled the dangerous bacteria, why symptoms might not show for weeks. Video appearing to show a sewage pipe burst at a major U.S. airport. Passengers nearly struck as the ceiling collapses, unleashing a foul smell. And the new streaming service allowing users to create their own AI-generated TV shows. Is the future of entertainment at the tip of your fingers? We'll explain. Plus, what sank the Titan submersible? The report finding the incident was preventable. Top story starts right now. And good evening. Tonight, the pressure to release the Epstein files is intensifying. House Republicans issuing nearly a dozen subpoenas for a number of high-profile government figures, including the Clintons. It comes despite President Trump's efforts to move past his Justice Department's decision not to release the files. Former President Bill Clinton seen here with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein back in 1993. Though he has never publicly spoken about their relationship, flight logs show Clinton flew on Epstein's plane. Now the former president, along with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and 8 other former top law enforcement officials, are being asked to testify. Notably absent from this list is Alex Acosta, the U.S. attorney who negotiated a sweetheart plea deal with Epstein back in 2008, allowing him to avoid a life sentence and serve just over a year in prison. And another new development. Today, lawyers for Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell rejecting the DOJ's request to unseal Epstein grand jury testimony. Plus, new tonight, the Justice Department weighing if they will reveal what was said in that recent 2-day sit-down with Maxwell. And today, the New York Times publishing a piece with never-before-seen images inside Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. NBC has not independently verified the photos in the story, but dozens of picture frames show his incredible vast reach, meeting with world leaders, including the Pope, even Fidel Castro, and this image with Epstein and former President Bill Clinton. We have a lot to get to tonight, starting with NBC's Kelly O'Donnell.
Tonight, this blunt and jarring new statement in a case commanding much public attention. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is not. Those words from Maxwell's attorneys today as they filed a request to block the government's efforts to release long secret grand jury transcripts in the investigation of infamous sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell is serving 20 years as Epstein's co-conspirator in the sex trafficking of young women. Her lawyers insist that despite whatever interest the public may have in Epstein, her legal options are viable and her due process rights remain. Attention has swirled around Maxwell after the Department of Justice conducted 2 days of interviews with her in July. And later, she was transferred from a Florida prison to a lower security camp in Texas that typically does not house sex offenders. Tonight, the president said he played no role in her move.
I didn't know about it at all. No, I read about it just like you did.
In a separate development today, a fresh round of congressional subpoenas that target a group of prominent national figures, including Bill and Hillary Clinton. House Oversight also subpoenaed 6 former attorneys general and 2 past FBI directors, seeking their testimony this fall. Epstein victims are also weighing into the court about the potential of releasing those transcripts with mixed reviews. One woman writing, "I am not some pawn in your political warfare," while another said, "This transparency and accountability is a form of justice."
Kelly O'Donnell joins us tonight from Washington. So, Kelly, lawmakers have also set a deadline for the Department of Justice to turn over more Epstein material.
That's right. So the House Oversight Committee wants to do its own investigation. This is one of the rare times where we see a break between a Republican-led committee and the Trump administration, because, as you pointed out, the DOJ has said it would not release more information. So House Oversight is saying, you've got 2 weeks to the DOJ to provide all the records. This would include the files from the Epstein prosecution, those files related to his death. He died in prison by suicide when he was awaiting trial. It would also deal with files with Ghislaine Maxwell. And then what they would hope to do is use that information to further their own investigation. This is not about making that public, but certainly if it got in the hands of Congress, that takes us one step closer to that material becoming public potentially someday. So that new deadline, Tom, is August 19th.
Okay, Kelly O'Donnell for us, leading us off here on Top Story. For more on all the moves in the Epstein case, let's bring in our political pros tonight. Carlos Curbelo, he's a former Republican congressman of Florida and an NBC News political analyst. Also with us, Democratic strategist and host of the Caucus Room podcast, Don Calloway. Carlos and Don, we thank you guys for being here. Carlos, I'm going to start with you. We heard there from some of the ruckus that was going on also across the country in these town halls with Republicans demanding answers on Epstein. Why is this still so important for Republican voters?
Well, Tom, think about what a difficult position Republican members of Congress are in. On the one hand, they have a president who really doesn't want this to be talked about very much. But on the other hand, they have a base that demands transparency. They want to know what's in these files. And we know that in the conservative ecosystem, these conspiracy theories over the years have gained a lot of energy. So these Republicans are figuring out how they deal with those voters while staying on the right side of President Trump.
Do you think the House Republicans and the Trump administration are not on the same page here? Because it seems at one point the president will say, let's stop talking about Epstein, and then the House Republicans, now they have new subpoenas.
They aren't, Tom, and what's remarkable is that the hardline conservatives, the ones that tend to feel less political pressure, right? It's usually those swing district members who are on the front lines who are facing pressure from the voters. In this case, it's the hardline conservatives who are facing that pressure from the base. The base wants more information. The president wants this issue to go away. So it's a very complex situation for them.
Don, what are Democrats doing here, right? They sort of seized on the disagreements this has caused, maybe adding a little fuel to the fire here. But really all they have to do is sort of sit back and watch this and maybe ride this into the midterms, right?
Yeah, but you still have to remember that the midterms and political time are still a long time away, and Republicans have unlimited funds, so where they can almost beat other messages into the minds of the American people, and the Democrats don't quite have the campaign funds right now to continue to beat this drum. That's why it's important that they capitalize on whether or not the files are ever released. I really don't think that the president has handled this messaging well. It's clear that he has had some type of social relationship with Jeffrey Epstein over the years, but this whole thing perhaps could have gone away a month ago if he just acknowledged that, but said, hey, but I wasn't involved in any type of abuse of underage women. And, you know, I think that the president, for such a person who has been such a master of political messaging for his 10 years on the stage, has handled this in such a way that it's made it a much worse crisis for himself.
Don, I do want to ask you, though, you talk about people who had relationships with Jeffrey Epstein. We know former President Clinton had a relationship for a long time with him as well. Are Democrats worried at all what these subpoenas could possibly do to the Clintons and to those Obama-era officials that have been subpoenaed as well?
No, not at all. I mean, it's worth stating the obvious that Bill Clinton has not been in elected public office for 25 years, since the year 2000, and Hillary Clinton hasn't been in public office since 2016 when she lost the general election to Donald Trump. Now, the quiet part is that mainstream Democratic leadership has quietly moved away from Bill Clinton over the years. He was a part of this last convention, but he was not a marquee speaker on one of the final two nights, which are the primetime slots, and he really has not been included in Democratic leadership for more than a generation now. So Democrats have quietly moved away because we've known about his relationship with not only Epstein, but some of his other just social behaviors that really don't fit into the modern day progressive Democratic Party, particularly as it comes to relationships with women over the years.
Carlos, if you were advising the White House right now, what would you tell them to do? Because it doesn't seem like they're on the same page with their own DOJ, their Attorney General, or with the House Republicans, as we mentioned. And then President Trump is asked about it. Sometimes he says something one day and he'll say something else different the next day. You don't know if he wants to keep it in the headlines or if he doesn't. What would your advice be to him?
Tom, the White House has to feed the base. The base wants answers. They have to put Pam Bondi out there to answer questions under oath, give people the transparency they want. Only then will they be able to pivot away from this issue. As long as it appears to the base that the administration is part of the conspiracy, trying to keep this information secret, the harder it will be for them to move on. Once they answer questions in a transparent way, in a public setting, then maybe they can pivot away.
Don, a lot of this is politics, right? And people's curiosity into this case, talking about conspiracy theories, as Carlos mentioned earlier. But there are real victims here, right? Jeffrey Epstein was a despicable person. Ghislaine Maxwell is locked up in prison for those crimes as well. And it seems like they may be getting lost in all of this politics, in all these politics.
Yeah, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, this is an important moment to remember that there were real victims who were really abused, many of them underage, but all of them abused, and likely the victims of fundamentally illegal acts, which all of us would find reprehensible. The problem is that that's not the political tone or the mantle of leadership that this president has set for the last 10 years. So now it's somewhat rich to hear people in leadership in the White House say, well, let's center the victims, let's depoliticize all of this, when that's simply not the political attitude that this president has preached from his bully pulpit for the last 10 years. He's been vindictive. He's been decisively aggressive in going after anyone who he thinks is on the wrong side of history. And he certainly is not someone who has given the opposite party the kind of grace that he would look for now in asking that all of us just center the victims and depoliticize the issue. So it's kind of hard to ask for that when that's not been the tone of leadership that he's set for 10 years now.
Don Calloway, you'll get the last word. Carlos Curbelo, always great to have you here in studio. Turning now to the other breaking news, we're following wildfires raging across multiple U.S. states and in Canada. Flames in California prompting urgent evacuations and threatening almost 1,000 structures. Right now, 88 million Americans facing dangerous air quality as smoke blankets major cities. Even Boston Logan Airport struggling with ground delays for a second straight day due to low visibility. Liz Kreutz is inside the fire zone in California. And Liz, officials are telling you this place is hard to battle?
Well, Tom, good evening to you. The fire burning in this forest right now is the largest in California. Firefighters tell us that the increasingly hot and dry conditions this week are making it even harder to fight this fire, just one of hundreds burning across North America right now.
Tonight, multiple wildfires impacting cities coast to coast. In Central California, the Gifford fire exploding to more than 82,000 acres, forcing hundreds to evacuate, with flames threatening nearly 900 structures.
All the fences on the backside burned up.
Satellite imagery showing a time lapse of the smoke, blanketing skies as far away as Las Vegas.
And the fire started right around here on the highway, quickly charring thousands of acres. Firefighters say it's the steep terrain deep in this forest that's made it so challenging to fight.
You have extremely steep slopes, very rugged, and then places that haven't burned in a long time. So we received less than 50% average rainfall this year. That's causing the fuels to be in critical fuel moisture level.
The fire, one of roughly a dozen burning across the state, from Big Bear to the mountains near Palm Desert. Further east in Arizona, firefighters battling the largest fire in the U.S. in the Grand Canyon, where the Dragon Bravo fire is now more than 125,000 acres. In Maui, evacuations now lifted after a brush fire threatened homes near Lahaina Monday, almost 2 years to the day since the deadly wildfire that killed more than 100 people. From the Great Lakes to the Northeast, at least a dozen states under air quality alerts due to smoke from multiple fires burning in Canada. Hazy skies can be seen in cities like Milwaukee and New York.
It's really not good. It's hazy out. I don't feel healthy out here.
And in Boston today, another ground delay at Logan Airport due to low visibility. Meanwhile, further south, North Carolina dealing with a downpour. In Charlotte, some neighborhoods underwater. From fires to flooding, the threat of extreme weather this summer is not over yet. Liz Kreutz, NBC News, Los Padres National Forest.
Liz Kreutz for us in the fire zone tonight. Liz, our thanks to you. We are in Miami tonight, and so is Al Roker for us. Al, when will we see any relief in sight when it comes to that air quality?
Well, Tom, we've got a couple more days before things start to clear out. As you take a look at the air quality right now, unhealthy in Green Bay, Detroit, New York City, Albany, Burlington, Vermont, a little bit better. However, we've got these 746 active fires in Canada. That's a real source for all that smoke. But the good news is high pressure builds in and it starts to dissipate the smoke by Thursday, Tom, air quality should get a lot better.
Okay, we hope so. And then you're tracking some action off the East Coast and the Atlantic. What's going on?
That's right. We got 3 areas we're watching right now, 3 areas of development that we can see currently. We look at this system that's going to start to develop, both one coming off of Africa, another one, we got Tropical Storm Dexter that's moving away, but it's this one here along the southeastern Atlantic coast that has a 40% chance of development later this week from Cape Hatteras down to Melbourne, just off the coast of Florida. We're going to be watching this. Even if it doesn't become a tropical storm, Tom, it probably still is going to generate a decent amount of thunderstorms and rainfall.
All right, we'll keep our eye on that, Al. We thank you. We want to move on now to Tennessee, where authorities have captured the man accused of killing 4 family members and kidnapping an infant. Local police commending the community for assisting in the suspect's arrest by calling in sightings and providing ring video. NBC's Priya Sridhar has the details.
A suspected killer now in custody after evading authorities for a week.
Just after 8 o'clock a.m., we received multiple calls of sightings of the suspect. Placing resources there immediately resulted in an additional citizen's call at about 8:57 a.m. We took advantage of that quickly evolving situation and made the arrest at 9:05 a.m.
They've got multiple callers stating they've got sightings of a man with a rifle that ran back into the wood line.
Officials say this video from a ring camera showing 28-year-old Austin Robert Drummond dressed in camo and carrying a rifle helped narrow down their search. Authorities say Drummond shot and killed 4 family members, then took an infant and abandoned the baby in a random yard.
I understand there's a connection between the suspect and the victims. Can you just speak to that relationship?
Yeah, in terms of the relationship between the suspect and the victims, the suspect's girlfriend is the sister of a victim.
In an interview with WMCR, NBC Memphis affiliate, Ricardo Contreras says he spotted Drummond this morning.
I think I was while I still on the phone when they got there immediately, and the helicopter and everything. That was, I mean, they moved really quick.
Officials tonight praising the community.
All of the effort, all of the technology, all of the dog determination that we had was really came down to the community doing as was stated, seeing something and making that call.
All right, with that, Priya Sridhar joins us tonight from Jackson, Tennessee, live. Priya, what new details have we learned about the suspect?
Well, Tom, we don't know any further details exactly about his motive, but we know that he was not armed when he was apprehended. Authorities did recover weapons, but they haven't been able to tie those weapons directly to the quadruple homicide. We also know that he is a convicted felon who was actually out on bond for attempted murder charges. And we're also hearing from authorities tonight, Tom, that 3 additional people were arrested as accomplices. However, they didn't reveal any details about exactly what those 3 people did to assist Drummond. Tom?
Okay, Priya Sridhar, a lot of new reporting there. Priya, we thank you. Now to President Trump's trade war. His latest round of tariffs set to go into effect midnight tomorrow, with new threats for at least one key trading partner. All this as many Americans say they're feeling the pain of high prices. Here's Garrett Hake with the story.
With less than 30 hours to go until his new global tariffs go into effect, President Trump warning he may raise tariffs still farther on key trade partner India, already facing a 25% import tax. That threat coming in a wide-ranging phone interview on CNBC.
But I think I'm going to raise that very substantially over the next 24 hours because they're buying Russian oil, they're fueling the war machine, and if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy.
Trump policy uncertainty now affecting disparate parts of the U.S. economy.
Tariffs, again, did take a bite out of this.
Heavy equipment maker Caterpillar telling investors tariffs could cost their bottom line $1.5 billion this year. Hotel giant Marriott noting a drop in demand from government travel and international visitors to the U.S. And a new AP poll shows more than half of Americans consider the cost of groceries to be a major source of stress. Trump allies facing frustration over the state of the economy.
Why does it seem like when you make your voting decisions, they're based on capital rather than the working class?
Nebraska Republican Congressman Mike Flood blasted with jeers at a town hall last night for saying this.
With all due respect, sir, the Republican Party now more than ever, represents the heart and soul of the working class.
All this as the president is still being hit with questions over Friday's weak jobs numbers for the past 3 months and his decision to fire the head of the federal agency responsible for reporting them, claiming without evidence that the numbers were politically manipulated.
It's a highly political situation. It's totally rigged. Smart people know it.
Okay, with that, Garrett Haake joins us tonight from the White House. Garrett, I know you have another headline. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will meet with Russian leaders in Moscow tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. These meetings come ahead of the president's Friday deadline for Russia to reach some kind of ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, or the president says be subject to so-called secondary tariffs. The idea here is to punish Russia's trading partners like China and India and thereby isolate Russia further from the global economy. Tom?
All right, Garrett Haake for us tonight. Garrett, we thank you for that. Up next on Top Story, the new details on that Titan submersible disaster. Why the Coast Guard now says the wreck was preventable. Plus, the battle in Texas over redistricting going national. What Democrats are saying about blocking the GOP plan, including one leader urging her party to go nuclear. And growing concerns over a new virus outbreak in China. Thousands of people there infected. We'll hear from our Dr. John Torres about the symptoms and the risks. We're back in a moment. We're back now with new details on the Titan submersible implosion. The Coast Guard releasing its reports on the deep sea disaster that killed all 5 people on board, including the company's CEO. The probe finding his company silenced warnings and that the tragedy was entirely preventable. Here's Stephanie Gosk.
It could have been prevented, the U.S. Coast Guard concludes in a more than 300-page report on the deadly implosion of the Titan submersible. 5 people were killed in June 2023 on their way to the Titanic wreck, more than 10,000 feet underwater. Among them, the CEO of OceanGate, the company that offered the ultra-exclusive and expensive tours. Jason Neubauer chaired the investigation.
Was the company primarily to blame for this tragedy?
I believe so. They understood the process. They just didn't follow it.
The U.S. Coast Guard says a number of factors led to the sudden catastrophic implosion. Among them, the company had a toxic workplace environment and relied on intimidation tactics to avoid oversight, including the looming threat of being fired to silence employees concerned about safety. David Lockridge says he was fired in 2018 after repeatedly warning CEO Stockton Rush that the carbon fiber used to build the submersible wasn't safe. The hull popped and cracked, he says, during testing.
Everybody was aware that the hull was starting to break down. It should never have sounded like that at all. That was a warning sign.
During the 2022 operating season, the Titan's hull began to make noise again. And what that meant was carbon fiber was breaking, during each of those dives.
OceanGate says it cooperated fully with the Coast Guard's investigation, saying it wound down operations after the tragedy. Today, the family of businessman Shahzada Dawood and his 19-year-old son, who both died on the Titan, thanked the U.S. Coast Guard and called for accountability and regulatory change, but added no report can alter the heartbreaking outcome for their family. The U.S. Coast Guard says the biggest problem here is that this company didn't do the adequate testing that they needed to do, that all of the red flags were there, that there were problems with the structural integrity of this submersible, Tom, but in the end, they just ignored them.
Top story. What to know about a deadly outbreak of Legionnaire's disease that has killed 3 people and sickened more than 60 in New York. What's causing the spread? And what's being called the Netflix of AI. Have you heard about this? A new video platform that not only lets you stream your favorite shows, but makes new episodes yourself. Our Stephen Romo tests it out. But first, Top Story's top moment, a furry face-off in the wild. The mascot for the Seattle Kraken of the NHL charged by a wild grizzly bear during a team fishing expedition in Alaska. Take a look.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Okay, the Kraken says the bear and the team's troll mascot, Bowie, were not hurt in the making of that video. Kind of want to see what happens at the end. Let's hope the next bear that the team sees is on the ice. Maybe the Boston Bruins. Get it? All right, we'll be right back. We're back now with the latest on that redistricting battle in Texas turning into a political war. The Texas House not reaching a quorum again today as dozens of Democratic lawmakers remain out of the state. And late today, Republican Governor Greg Abbott asking the state Supreme Court to remove the House Democratic chair from office. Ryan Chandler has been following this story closely for us, joins us tonight live from Austin. All right, Ryan, walk our viewers through where things stand at this hour. They seem to be escalating.
That political war, Tom, is going nuclear. It's a great way to put it. We've used the term redistricting arms race a lot this week, but it really encapsulates how national the debate that started here in Texas is going. A huge escalation tonight from Governor Greg Abbott, who just in the last hour asked the state Supreme Court for permission to remove the Democratic leader of the Texas House from office. This is an unprecedented move in which the governor is arguing that if you're going to leave your seat, you are leaving it vacant, and I get to call a special election to replace you. That's a question for the courts, and it is novel legal ground, but the governor is really playing hardball in a way here that we have not seen before. I'll be speaking with the chairman later tonight about that. But House Democrats remain defiant, many of them still in Chicago, New York, Boston, at least publicly, not showing any signs that they are fazed by these threats, Tom.
Yeah, and then, Ryan, as we've been reporting, there's maybe 50 lawmakers, if that have fled Texas, but not every Democrat has left, right? Walk our viewers through exactly why some have stayed.
Some Democrats have a different rationale about how best to deal with the threat they see coming from Republicans. There were 8 Democrats of about 64 in the House who were here today. Still not enough to grant Republicans a quorum, but I spoke with one of them, Representative Eddie Morales from the Maverick County border region. He told me that, look, he has no problem with some Democrats doing what their constituents want them to do, flee the state and break quorum. But for him, his constituents want him to be here and fight the good fight, trying to find bipartisan solutions. Here's some of our conversation.
Everyone fights in their own way, in their own capacity. I applaud them for their efforts. They believe that they are responding to what their constituents are requesting of them. I believe that my constituents of House District 74 want me to be here and do the fight here.
Now, he says that there are not many bipartisan conversations happening while the quorum break is still active, Tom. Republicans showing no signs that they want to work with Democrats at all, and frankly, they don't have to. They have the votes. No signs that they are scared that this Democratic tactic will ultimately stop these maps, but they are getting frustrated that they are being stalled. The state of play right now, the full House will be back on Friday. The governor threatening arrest for any Democrat who is found in Texas, not at the state capitol. Tom.
Okay, Ryan Chandler for us. Ryan, we thank you. We want to turn out to Top Stories news feed. We start off here in Florida, where nearly 24 people are sick after drinking raw milk. 6 of those affected are children under the age of 10. At least 7 have been hospitalized. Each case is linked to raw milk from the same farm, but health officials have not released that farm's name. Raw milk hasn't been pasteurized, meaning it hasn't been treated with heat to destroy bacteria in that liquid. And we're learning tonight that Sean Diddy Combs' defense team has reached out to President Trump about a potential pardon. Combs was convicted back on July 2nd after a jury found him guilty of 2 counts of transportation for the purposes of prostitution. A source close to Sean Combs' defense team confirms they have reached out to President Trump seeking a pardon, something the president discussed with Newsmax last week. The music mogul is scheduled for sentencing on October 3rd. An apparent sewer line burst at the Atlanta airport, sending passengers running for cover. Look at this. Watch closely as part of the ceiling collapses. Oh, that's just gross. Pouring onto the ground. You can see the water there. Passengers try to avoid the spill. Passengers also reporting the dirty water had an awful smell. Yeah, I'm sure it did. The airport says the area has been contained and that the leak source is now being investigated. Okay, and a former Miami Heat security worker accused of selling millions of dollars worth of memorabilia from the team. 62-year-old Marcos Thomas Perez charged in a massive theft that included more than 400 game-worn jerseys and other items. The items were being kept by the team for a future Miami Heat museum. Okay, we're going to turn now to Top Stories Health Check, and we're giving monitoring a few outbreaks both in the U.S. and overseas. We're going to start right here in New York, a bacterial, well, not right here in New York, but in New York, a bacterial outbreak turning deadly. The city's health department just updating that 3 people have died and more than 60 are sickened from a cluster of Legionnaire's disease in Harlem. Following this story for us is NBC medical contributor Dr. John Torres. Dr. John, thanks for joining us. So officials know what's causing this outbreak yet, and how contagious is it?
And good evening, Tom. And you can see the zip codes there that are affected in the Harlem area. And yes, they do know what's causing this. It is a bacteria that causes Legionnaire's disease. That bacteria comes from cooling towers that are in those large buildings. And the way this happens is the cooling towers end up putting water droplets into the air that have the bacteria in them. Those water droplets get inhaled. And once they get inhaled, they can develop into this type of pneumonia that Legionnaire's is. And like you've mentioned, there unfortunately have been some deaths. There have been multiple cases. But the good news is this is not passed human to human. It's from those cooling systems. And so in this case, that's pretty much where it stops once they get that under control. And that's what they're working on doing right now, Tom.
Yeah, and then how do you treat it if someone does sort of get sick with Legionnaire's?
So the main treatment is antibiotics, and like most things, the sooner you start them, the better. The symptoms here are essentially the symptoms you get with a lot of these early pneumonias, where you end up getting flu-like illness, where you feel under the weather, you have fevers, you have muscle aches, and then it develops into a cough and breathing difficulties and shortness of breath. If it gets to that point, that's definitely when you need to be seen, or if you're not getting any resolution of your symptoms. Again, not passed person to person, but the other thing is to check on the cooling systems, especially if you have any kind of water source cooling system. It can also be in hot tubs. It can be in decorative fountains. As long as these things are maintained and cleaned appropriately, then there really isn't much of an issue with this. But if they're not, you can see what happens here, unfortunately, and it can be a bigger issue.
Okay, I also want to ask you about this other outbreak that's happening in China right now. It's a painful mosquito-borne virus. And there's more than 7,000 people infected, mostly in the city of Foshan. It's China's largest outbreak of the virus in more than a decade. Authorities there are using similar practices. You're going to see it right here that they used during the COVID-19 pandemic to try to curb this outbreak, enforcing strict quarantines for those infected and fogging the streets with insect repellent. So, Dr. John, talk to us about what exactly this virus is and how serious are the symptoms.
So this virus has the name chikungunya, and it's a hard name to pronounce, but it's a virus that once it affects people, they end up, for the most part, again, getting these flu-like symptoms, but they can also get muscle aches. And the telltale sign here is getting this joint swelling and joint pain that doesn't seem to want to go away. And people describe having this for weeks, months, sometimes even years. Unfortunately, this can also turn into rare cases of cardiac or eye issues. And so it's something you definitely want to make sure that you avoid. The best way to do that is essentially avoiding that mosquito, which is the Aedes mosquito, which also carries Zika, it carries dengue, it carries this chikungunya, and we're starting to see this spread across other countries. And so definitely wherever you are, even if you're at home, you need to make sure you avoid mosquitoes. That's the biggest key here, Tom.
So it's concentrated in the south of China. Are there any concerns it could come to the United States, spread to other countries?
You know, and in China right now, they're taking pandemic-like measures where they're going house to house. They're making sure they eliminate the water. They're quarantining people that have it. They learn lessons from the pandemic they're putting in place right now. The other thing is you don't hear much about this news, but Brazil has 185,000 cases worldwide, 240,000 cases with 90 deaths. And so it can be a fatal disease. This is one of those things, again, that because of climate change, this mosquito is spreading and the disease is spreading with it as well. And so making sure that you avoid mosquito bites here at home, if you're traveling especially. There is a vaccine that was just approved, or 2 vaccines. They're not used much, but they will be used if you're going to an area that has this in it. It's endemic, the disease, and so definitely talk to your doctor about that. But for the most part, like anything else, we're talking West Nile virus, chikungunya, Zika, dengue, any of these mosquito-borne diseases, you want to avoid the mosquitoes, Tom.
Okay, Dr. John, so great to see you as always. Next tonight, to a new AI tool generating buzz online. It's called Showrunner. And the creators say it allows users to make their own animated series in just minutes, letting people create parodies of political figures or even cartoon versions of themselves. Our Stephen Romo spoke to one of the co-creators and put that tech to the test.
Elon, I have an executive order here on my desk that says provide new Showrunner users with a brief overview of how to generate a scene.
Its creators are calling it the Netflix of AI.
And there's a person
watching us right now.
Showrunner, a video platform launched by the startup Fable, promises not only to let you stream new shows, but also to make new episodes yourself with the help of artificial intelligence.
Look! See? Even Nacho thinks this is ridiculous.
And the company's now backed by an investment from Amazon's Alexa fund, Venture Capital. And the platform has started with an AI-generated show titled Exit Valley.
Elon, this place is a biohazard.
Described as a Family Guy-style TV comedy satirizing tech giants like Sam Altman.
Oh God, is this what I built OpenAI for?
But what Fable is really banking on is that you will get inspired by their content and remix it. And it's now available to users on Discord, so we put it to the test. Trying to use a feature that the company says lets you become a character in a show by simply uploading a photo. So I uploaded a selfie to Showrunner, but had a hard time turning myself into a character. But we were able to create a scene where animated versions of Kim Kardashian and Joe Rogan sang my praises.
I mean, if aliens came down and asked for our best human, I'd be like, take Stephen Romo, but don't probe him, okay?
We spoke to Showrunner co-founder Edward Sachi about the issues we ran into.
We're still figuring out, we're still in the early days. It's confusing the way that it asks you to do it because it asks you to put in a prompt or a photo, but you could sort of read it as a prompt and a photo. It was kind of, they were canceling each other out. So the photo and the words were canceling each other out.
The app's public access comes just weeks after Disney and Universal, which shares a parent company with NBC News, joined forces in a lawsuit against artificial intelligence image creator Midjourney, alleging copyright infringement. But Fable says it's actually in talks now about a partnership with Disney and other Hollywood studios about licensing intellectual property for Showrunner.
We're deleting characters, so people might create a character connected to an IP. We delete them when we see them. People will try to find their way around it. But when we see it, we block it. Or when people ask us to do a takedown, we take it down.
So whether you love or hate the idea of AI making its way into your TV rotation, there's no denying having access to all this creative power at the push of a button can be, at the very least, entertaining.
You're living in the golden age of content.
Stephen, it does look entertaining. It looks like a lot of fun, too. When you went into the site, was there a lot of content already generated on there? And is it fair to call these TV episodes, or are they mostly short clips?
Yeah, Tom, there was a ton already, people just exploring and trying to use it. But from what I can tell, it mostly seemed just like these short clips. There was a lot of content out there, so maybe we need an AI to come through and see what is actually episode length to figure that out. But like the creator said, it's actually just the very beginning. So who knows how long it'll take before someone figures out how to turn this into its own animated series. It might be just around the corner.
And they may be talking about Stephen Romo like fake Kim Kardashian and Joe Rogan were. All right, Stephen, great story. Thank you. When Top Story returns, we're going to take a turn here. Nearly 80 years since the world's first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. A 12-year-old boy is sharing the story of survival of his city. He hopes the world never forgets. And horror in the Himalayas, several dead. Look at this, dozens missing after a flash flood tore through a small town in northern India. Global Watch just ahead. We're back now with Top Stories Global Watch, and we begin in India, where at least 4 people are dead and dozens are missing after floods triggered devastating mudslides. This video capturing rushing flood waters and mud burying a village in the Indian Himalayas. Army and disaster response teams still working to rescue people trapped under debris. Some experts say the region has become more prone to floods due to climate change. And dramatic new video out of Japan showing a fiery explosion breaking out during a fireworks show. Check this out. You can see flames erupting on the barges as they launch the fireworks. Police say 5 workers on board were rescued after they jumped into the water. We're told 1 was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. Authorities are investigating what caused the incident. And Brazilian police striking gold, literally after a record-breaking bust. The country's Federal Highway Patrol seizing 100 gold bars from a pickup truck. They say the truckload is worth around $11 million and weighed more than 100 kilos. Police made the discovery during a traffic stop and say the bars were likely being transported to Venezuela or Guyana. Also overseas, Japan and the world tonight marking 80 years since the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second bomb dropped on Nagasaki. In all, nearly 250,000 lives were lost by the aerial assault, which many historians say helped usher the end of World War II. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer has the look at how the city is honoring those lives lost while fighting to ensure history does not repeat itself.
Every morning at exactly 8:15, the chimes ring out across Hiroshima, marking the moment in 1945 when a U.S. bomber overhead, the Enola Gay, dropped the world's first atomic bomb here. What it looked like from the air, a mushroom cloud, rising some 60,000 feet.
Hiroshima had ceased to exist.
Yet on the ground, wide-scale death and devastation.
The target was this bridge. It's T-shaped, but the bomb veered toward the dome, which after the blast was the only building in a 1-mile radius still standing.
The whirlwind of force and fire killed thousands outright. The radioactive black rain poisoning countless more. Teruko Yahata was 8 years old that day. She says she still has the scar from being hurled by the blast. Fearing another, she huddled under a blanket with her family. I didn't really understand what it meant to die, she says. But the warmth I felt at us dying together, I still remember to this day. 3 days after Hiroshima, the U.S. unleashed a second bomb on Nagasaki, hastening Japan's surrender and, according to most historians, the end of the war, at a price of nearly 250,000 lives. From the ashes, Hiroshima was rebuilt.
So this is it, the hypocenter. It was roughly 2,000 feet over this spot.
Now a busy city of more than 1 million people, drawing tourists from around the world in a sort of pilgrimage. There's a memorial peace park and museum. And the iconic atomic dome.
Both sides was crushed from the top, and then this part was melted.
People now connecting to the past using virtual reality.
You look straight up. I see the B-29 bomber.
The tour recreates the bombing and its brutal aftermath, at times troubling.
You can just easily imagine that it truly happened here, using this VR.
Yet the toll of what happened is all around Hiroshima. Survivors here are called hibakusha, or bomb-affected persons. Many have endured illness and discrimination. Kunihiko Ida grew up an orphan. He says he was told he wouldn't live to age 20. Now he's 83. Yet each year the hibakusha decline, and soon living memory of that day will be gone. Last year, the work of Japanese survivors group Nihon Hidankyo was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Toshiyuki Mimaki among those, making it a mission to ensure Hiroshima is neither forgotten nor repeated. We're in a very dangerous situation with Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Iran, he says. Even a single nuclear bomb would mean disaster. For a long time, many survivors and their families didn't talk about that day or the effects of radiation or emotional trauma.
Hello, excuse me, where did you come from?
When Shun Sasaki learned what his great-grandmother had gone through, he didn't shy away from it. Instead, the 12-year-old began offering free guided tours for visitors to the Peace Park.
Why is it important to talk about it?
So, the most scariest thing that might happen in the future is to forget what happened a long time ago. I thought that if I could tell them about Hiroshima, it can be more better.
80 years on, there are reminders here, like the chimes that ring out every morning. Janice Mackey-Frayer, NBC News, Hiroshima.
80 years later, incredible. We thank Janice and her team for that one. When Top Story returns, 2 helicopter heroes back here at home on a routine patrol in the sky. How their split-second decision saved a life. Don't go away. We are back now with Matcha Mania, the bright green drink, a big hit at cafes across the country. It's such a big hit, there are growing concerns consumers are drinking the supply dry. NBC's Emily Aketa has this look at the latest drink trend that could soon get much more expensive.
It's the bright green drink that's now a lot of people's cup of tea.
Every time someone else is getting coffee, I'm like, okay, give me the matcha.
Matcha, a vibrant powder swirled into lattes, lemonades, and ice cream.
Oh, it's really good. It's so creamy.
The budding obsession is rooted in a rich history. Matcha has been used in Japanese tea ceremonies and appreciated for its apparent health benefits for centuries.
In like the 1200s, 1300s, like people in Japan were talking about that and promoting it, like drinking matcha as a cure for hangovers, for example.
Today, it's a global sensation. You've probably seen lines snaking around stores.
Are you surprised by how busy this place is?
No, because it's really good.
The trend, experts say, accelerated by the colorful creations splashed across social media and a tourism boom in Japan since the pandemic.
If you look on Instagram and TikTok, like the bright green color of matcha, it's very visually appealing. And there's also the cool Japan factor, the sort of aesthetics of trendy minimalism.
Orders for matcha lattes are skyrocketing in the U.S., up 48% from last year, according to payment processing company Square. And prices are rising too, averaging $6.15, up from $5.84 last year. But supply is drying up, with farmers turning away from tea over the last couple of decades, plus record-breaking heat hurting this spring's harvest. With tight supply and sky-high demand, companies in Japan are even limiting how much matcha people can buy. And cafes in the U.S. are running out.
We have seen extreme demand. We usually sell out within 24 hours, and recently, 200 tins went up, and they were gone in about 16 hours.
Zach Mangan, founder of Kettle, a company selling Japanese teas online and in New York and L.A. cafes, says most suppliers doubled their prices from last year, and Kettle's had to pass some of those costs on to consumers. He's worried Kettle will need to raise prices even more now with new 15% tariffs on Japanese goods.
If it were just 15%, we might be able to just say whatever, we'll take care of it. But it makes it more complicated when you're factoring both the tariffs and the increase in raw material costs in Japan.
So how long can inflation-weary consumers keep spending big on the latest hot drink? People are pulling back on spending at some major chains, but Americans are pouring more money into beverages, with sales at U.S. beverage chains forecasted to grow by 4.5% this year. Affordable is still appetizing for many.
We have the viral spaghetti.
With the thrifty spaghetti, an Aperol Spritz spinoff, making a run at cocktail of the summer.
You have this sort of little bit of barbell effect of super cheap, no bells and whistles, and then go all out on that one time in that experience.
For now, business is booming at the matcha cafes, and as prices rise, time will tell whether matcha lovers will keep putting their money where their mouth is.
Japanese producers are working to ramp up the production of matcha, but it's not an easy task. Experts point out that only a fraction of land in Japan can be farmed, and converting farmland to grow tencha, the leaves that make matcha, takes time. So for now, you can expect to pay a little bit more for those sensational sips.
We thank Emily Aketa for that. Finally tonight, the life-saving maneuver pulled off by two helicopter pilots in Baltimore after a call came in about a man drowning in a city pool. The pair pulling out all the stops to get to that pool and save a life. Brianna Ross from our Baltimore affiliate WBAL has this one.
Out on routine patrol in the skies above Baltimore, helicopter Foxtrot flight officers Craig Hoover and Andre Smith Jr. heard a call come over the radio.
I got 2 tickets for a water rescue. It says drowning arrest out of water.
A 25-year-old man who hopped the fence at a neighborhood pool after hours needed help.
I decided to respond to that call.
Hoover and Smith knew this call was life or death, and other officers were too far away to get there in time.
I did see the bystanders. It appeared they had just pulled the victim out of the water.
So circling over the school.
Dre is passionate about saving and helping people. And when he said, if you get me on the ground, I'll do CPR on this guy, I had no choice. I had to find a way to get him on the ground.
I'm putting the helicopter down in the field. This guy looked like he's not breathing, not moving. He's in cardiac arrest. Have a medic get here ASAP.
I 10-4, copy.
Officer Hoover spotted an opening, a field next to the nearby school where he could land. On the ground, watch Officer Smith sprint to the patient's side.
I knew right away, just looking at him, he was in bad shape and he needed compressions pretty quick, so I just did it.
Smith, who was a lifeguard growing up, was able to get the man breathing again.
It feels good. For me, it's just a regular day in the office.
A heroic split-second decision and a life saved. Brianna Ross for NBC News, Baltimore.
All right, that does it for us. We thank Brianna and, of course, WBAL for their help on that story. We thank you for watching Top Story tonight from Miami. I'm Tom Llamas. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.